What is item analysis? Item analysis uses different statistical measures in order to determine any problems with the items that make up a question in the exam and hence the question itself. Item analysis is a process which examines student responses to individual text items or questions in order to assess the quality of those items of the test as a whole. Item analysis is especially valuable in improving items which will be used again in later tests, but it can also be used to eliminate ambiguous or misleading items in a single test administrations. In addition, item analysis is valuable for increasing instructor skills in test construction and identifying specific areas of course content which need greater emphasis or clarity. Item analysis is the act of analyzing student responses to individual exams questions with the intention of evaluating exams quality. It is an important tool to uphold test effectiveness and fairness. Item analysis is likely something educators do both consciously and unconsciously on a regular basis. In fact, grading literally involves studying student responses and the pattern of the student errors, whether to a particular question or particular types of question. But when the process is formalized, item analysis becomes a scientific method through which tests can be improved and academic integrity upheld.
Item analysis brings light to test quality in the following ways. First, we have item difficulty. Item difficulty is an estimate of the skill level needed to pass an item. It is frequently measured by calculating the proportion of individuals passing an item. It refers to how easy or difficult an item is. When an item is one that every student either get wrong or correct, it decreases an exam's reliability. If everyone gets particular answer correct, there's less of a way to tell who really understands the material with deep knowledge. Conversely, if everyone gets a particular answer incorrect, then there's no way to differentiate those who've learned the material deeply. To determine the difficulty level of test items, a measure called the difficulty index is used. The formula used to measure item difficulty is quite straightforward. It involves finding out how many students answered an item correctly and dividing it by the number of students who took this test. We also have here the level of difficulty.
Hello, I'm Claudine Cachola and this is my report. I'm going to talk about item analysis. Item analysis brings to light the test quality in the following ways. For item discrimination. Okay. The exam question discriminate between students who understand the material and those who do not. Exam question should give out the varying degrees of knowledge students have on a certain material. It is normally reflected by the percentage of the students who got correct on a particular exam question or exam questions. Desirable discrimination can be shown by comparing the correct answers to the total test scores of the students. So, an example is, do students who scored high overall have a higher rate of correct answers on the item than those who scored overall? So if you separate top scorers from the bottom scorers in a group, so is that particular group getting the answer correct? So you can measure this by using a discrimination index as your reference, because the discrimination index will tell how an assessment differentiates between a high and a low score. So, in other words, you would expect that the high-performing students would select the correct answer for each question more often than the low-performing students. So, if the situation was like that, as what I've mentioned before, then the assessment is said to have a positive discrimination index. Okay? And this would indicate that more students, that the students you would expect were the ones who got the answers correct. But then certain things can happen, like however you would find that none of the low performing students got the specific item correct, then the item would have a negative discrimination index. So there are 3 types of discrimination index. 1 is positive discrimination, 2 is negative discrimination, and 3 is zero discrimination. So you can say it's a positive discrimination when more students in the upper group or the higher level group got the item correctly than those students belonging to the lower group or the low performing group. And negative discrimination occurs when more students in the lower group got the item correctly than the students in the upper group. Then zero discrimination can also happen when a number of students in the upper group and lower group who answer the test correctly are equal. Then here is how you can solve discrimination index of each item. And on the right, you would find the discrimination index scale. So for the test items scored with 0 and 1, like the matching types, multiple choice, and true or false, there's a formula that we follow. D is the discrimination index of a particular item. It's equal to HC over LC over N, in which HC is the number of examinees in the high group who have correct responses to a particular item, and LC is the number of examinees in the low group who have corrected responses to a particular item, and N is the number of examinees in the criterion group, depending on how many pupils will you include in that particular group. And for me to understand it easier, I would translate all the items, indications in the index scale, convert it to percentage. So, for example, if the students scored 40% of the students scored the items correctly or answered the items correctly, then the item is considered to be a very good item. If only 30 to 39% of the students got the item correctly, this is a reasonably good item, but possibly subject for improvement. And if 20 to 29% of the students got the item correct, this is a marginal item, subject to improvement. But if the students, 20% of the below 20% of the students got the item correct, then this is considered as a poor item. Therefore, the item should be rejected or revised. Revised meaning you can rephrase the test question for the students to be able to understand it more or easier. And here is an added info when you compute discrimination indexes. This is algorithm called Pearson product correlation, and this is developed by Carl Pearson based on the related idea introduced by Francis Galton in the 1880s. You can use the Pearson product correlation. This could refer to the ability of an item to differentiate among the student on the basis of how well they know the material being tested. And the Pearson product correlation between a particular item and total scores on all other items in the test can provide an estimate of the degree to which an individual item is measuring the same thing as the rest of the items. Thank you very much.
Another way to evaluate the performance of the entire test item is through the analysis of the response options. It is very important to examine the performance of each option in a multiple choice item. We also have item distractors for multiple choice exams. Distractors play a significant role. An item distractor, also known as a foil or a trap, is an incorrect option for selected response item on an assessment. Do exams effectively distract test takers from the correct answer? For example, if a multiple choice question has 4 possible answers, are 2 of the answers obviously incorrect, thereby rendering the question with a 50-50% chance of correct response? When distractors are ineffective and obviously incorrect as opposed to being more disguised, then they become ineffective in assessing students' knowledge. An effective distractor will attract test takers with a lower overall score than those with a higher overall score.
Factors why students fail to get the correct answer in the given questions, and those are the following. It is not taught in the class properly and it is ambiguous. So it means that the teacher are not clear for their topic or their lesson, or not clear for the message or meaning of it. Maybe the teacher is still confused about the topic or the lesson. The third one is the correct answer is not among the given questions. The given questions maybe are not related to the correct answer, and it has more than one correct answer. That is why children will hard to find the correct answer because they will read it repeatedly and confuse what is the best or what is the correct answer.
There are factors why students fail to get the correct answer in the given question. First is that it contains grammatical clues which mislead the students. Second, the student is not aware of the content. Third, the student were confused by the logic of the question because it has double negatives. Fourth, the student failed to study the lesson.
There are 3 types or factors of item distractors, and those are mislead item, guessing item, and ambiguous item. So I will discuss to you the mislead item. So the test item is a potential miskey if there are more students from the upper group who will choose the incorrect options than the key. An item on an operational test that has been keyed incorrectly represents a threat to a score of validity. A miskey item can cause more able examinees to have lower overall scores and less able examinees to have higher overall scores.
Guessing item. Guessing item, students from the upper group have equal spread of choices among the given alternatives. So the student from the upper group guessed the answer because of the following reason. First, the content of the test is not discussed in the class or in the test. Second, the item is very difficult. Third, the question is trivial. And fourth, ambiguous. So, ambiguous items, this happened more when students from the upper group choose an equally incorrect option and keyed the answer.